Hello, everyone. Welcome to day number 3 of the Superbet Rapid and Blitz in Poland. This is actually the last day of the Rapid, round 7 to 9. And in this round, we'll feature Wesley So's win over Richard Rapport. It was a very wild and complicated game. It's Wild Wild West on top, beating Rapport. In the last round, by the way, Rapport also beat Allen. We will check that game later on after this. Let's check it out. Wesley was white. He went for d4. Knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop d7, e4, d6. So we have the King's Indian, d6, g6, and bishop d7, knight f6. The King's Indian defense. Knight f3 castles, bishop e2, e5. Here, Wesley castles. Okay, with castling here, Wesley shows his intention that he wants to fight. Previously, against Firuza in the Superbet Classic, he went for d takes e5, yeah, and went on to draw the game after takes, exchange of the queen, right? Takes on d8. But here, Wesley castled. He wants to fight against Richard. Good sign. Knight into a6, bishop e3. c6, d5. Right, this is a problem with c6. D takes c6 will be coming up later on, and d6 will be a target, yeah. Because if you push this pawn to c5, then opponent can go a3, rook b1, and b4, right? So c6, d5, knight g4, bishop g5, f6, bishop d2, f5, a3. Wesley tries to play b4 and c5 here, so that's queenside expansion. Normally, okay, this is typical in the King's Indian. White expands on the queen side and black also expands on the king side. So it's a pawn race on opposite sides of the board. Although the black pawns can be very dangerous because it is in front of your king. So black played f4 here. This is again a typical King's Indian move. Also possible was knight f6 to keep an eye on e4. Yeah. Although white will just ignore the threat because if he captured the pawn, then he would just go knight g5 right here. Yeah. So f4. The main thing here is to move back the knight into f7, g5, h5, and g4. So Wesley takes on c6. Okay, an important decision here. When the opponent tries to attack on the flank, on the side of the board, on this king side, you try to open up the middle. Okay. That's an important counterplay. Takes on c6, b takes c6, b4. The expansion on the queen side, knight c7. The knight wasn't doing anything on a6. So here, knight can go e6 and d4. So that's the plan. Rook into c1, king h8, rook c2. Now Wesley is planning to go back to c1, rook d2, pressure on d6. Rapport was alert. He played knight h6, go to f7, protect the important d6 pawn. Prophylactic move, bishop c1, knight f7, rook d2, queen e7, moving out of the d file, the pin, because white was threatening c5. With the queen on d8, white can play c5, pressure on the d6 pawn. Queen a4, attacking c6. Bishop d7, rook f d1, double up on d6, threatening c5, pressure on the d7 bishop. Rook f d8, protecting the bishop on d7, queen a5, knight into e6, a4. Wesley is trying to go for b5 here. And by the way, here Wesley could have just played c5 as well. Because if this city takes e5, he can go knight a4. And if you take on b4, a takes b4, you have knight c5 coming up. Yeah. But he went for a4. He wants blood. g5, h3, stopping g4. h5, right, knight h2, pawn, knight, and bishop, protecting the important g4 square. Knight into d4, takes h5. Wesley takes the pawn in h5. Potentially, this queen can go a6, pawn on c5, queen e2, bishop g6, and queen h5. That is the course of plan for white right here. So it doesn't matter if he loses the exchange. Rook into b8, threatening rook to b6, trapping Wesley's queen with a knight controlling a5. So Wesley had to play rook b2. He doesn't mind. Rook takes b4. Now if Rapport goes for rook to b6 here, queen takes on b6, rook takes b3. And white has compensation for that queen sacrifice, because now that d6 will be a target later on with ideas of bishop a3, go back to b2, rook b2. Yes, so you can also threaten the knight on f7 with that bishop, right? So c5, knight takes e5. Okay, the queen, it's a line clearance for the queen. Queen is safe. Bishop onto g6, clearance again for the queen. Earlier was the pawn, now the bishop. Knight into h6, queen h5. Knight to b3, rook to b1. Knight e4, bishop a3, pressure on d6. Rook c4, knight e2. Takes. E takes d4, Wesley played bishop b2. It was also possible here to play rook to d3. If Rapport plays c5, then white has this important e5. Right? If queen captures, for example, this knight f3 tempo on g5, and if pawn captures here, still knight f3. No c4 because there's a pin on the queen. If you go e4, knight takes g5. If you take the rook, takes on c5. Strong move. If you take this one, you lose your queen. Right. After takes on c5, if you play queen to f6, rook to b6. Amazing game. The rook, the bishop, the knight, the queen, and also this bishop, all working together. Bishop b2, c5. Okay, knight f3, g4. Knight g5, a big difference here, because with knight f3 and g4, look at the difference here earlier when you have this d takes e5, knight f3. If the opponent plays g4, knight g5, it's totally different, yeah, because you have this threat on c5, also your threat on b7. Compared it to bishop b2, your bishop is blocking the rook, right? It's blocking the rook. So the coordination is being interfered, yeah. Now g4, knight g5, rook f8. White has limited resources now with the bishop on b2. You cannot use the rook. You're blocking your own rook. It's supposed to be compared it to rook d3, yeah. with rook d3, it's protecting the bishop, threatening rook b7, yeah. Knight on f3. So all white's pieces are working together. So bishop b2 wasn't that good, yeah. Okay, knight h7 takes, bishop g4, queen d5, a very complicated game. Takes on f8, bishop takes d4. Takes on d4, rook to b7, and here Rapport blundered with queen e6. Black is better after bishop d7. Okay, Wesley is forced now to capture this one, yeah. And then you attack the rook on b7, rook a7, only then you go queen e6, yeah. Now it's safe. But queen e6, Wesley has queen g5. After bishop queen e5, queen d8, it was also possible for Wesley to go rook h7, bishop f5, and rook takes h6. That's also winning. Queen d8, pin. If you go king h8, it's going to be mate. Bishop h7, king h8, takes, and mate. So king g7 was played with Rapport, takes, rook c1, played d3, bishop e8, knight f7, queen c7, threatening queen f7. There's also a threat on the rook. Game over for black. White wins. All right. Wesley is actually undefeated in the rapid section. He wins one game every day, so there's a win and two draws. Yeah. So first day, one win with two draws. Second day, same. Right, solid performance for Wesley. Okay, just stable, very stable. Anand lost one game to Richard Rapport. Rapport was second place in the rapid, but there's still the blitz section starting tomorrow. So that was it. Wild West winning this very complicated game against Richard Rapport. All right, guys, thank you for watching, and thank you also for supporting our channel, Charles Max Chess and Charles Max Entertainment, on Facebook and YouTube. We now have 1,000 subscribers. Okay, we have reached another milestone. Thank you for your support. We will continue to give you more insightful videos in the days to come. This is Coach Oliver. Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.